Yeah, lovely. Okay, thank you very much. Bore da, my name is Councillor Cheryl Carlisle and I'm the Chair of the Finance and Resources Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Can I welcome everyone to the meeting, which is a multi-location meeting. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live streaming fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available through the Council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available and for those attending remotely to choose your language of choice. For those wishing to speak in the chamber, please raise your hand. For those attending remotely, please use the raise hand function. We will alternate between speakers in the chamber and remote attendees. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be unable to use the chat facility. Committee members who are attending remotely are required to leave their camera on throughout the debate and when voting in order to maintain the integrity of the decision-making process. If you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, pop a message in the chat function so the Democratic Services Officer is aware and then let us know when you return, please. Can I stress that I expect everyone present and participating in this meeting to conduct themselves appropriately and be respectful to each other. That applies to members, officers and anyone in the public gallery. When I open up the debate to members, I will ask committee members to speak and put the questions first, followed by non-committee members. It would be helpful if members could ask all their questions in one go. Whilst I do not wish to stifle debate, can I remind members that any questions should be focused on the subject matter and to avoid repetition. If I feel the length of individual speeches are negatively impacting on the overall time for discussion and becoming unmanageable, I would defer to the committee's rules of procedure, which limits the length of speeches to 5 minutes. So moving on to the agenda, apologies for absence, please. Sally, our committee's officer.
Yeah, apologies have been received from councillors Sharon Dolman, Aaron Wynne, Abdul Khan and John Roberts.
Thank you. Any others? Anyone? No. Okay. Item 2, declarations of interest. Any declarations? No. Okay. Item 3, urgent matters. There are no urgent matters. Item 4, minutes. To approve as a correct record our minutes of the 3rd of February 2025, pages 4 to 8. Could I have a proposer and a seconder, please? Councillor Chris will propose and Councillor Gareth second. Members would like to show? Lovely. Anyone against? No. Those are carried. Thank you. And the minutes of the 17th of February 2025, pages 9 to 15. Again, Councillor Chris and Councillor Gareth, oh, you're well trained this morning. Thank you.
Chair,
would like to show. Oh,
Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, can I just ask a point of clarification on page 14? And it's item 716, and it's the last bullet point on page 14, and it talks about the strategic school working group would seek to address specific issues faced by schools. I'm not wondering who are the group, strategic school working group that's been referenced there. I don't recognise it. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor.
I think it's the working group that Councillor Julie has convened, I think.
I don't think it is, Reen, because that's about strategic schools planning. It's not about budgets. So I don't think that's within the remit of that group. So I did wonder if instead of strategic school working group, that was meant to be the school's budget forum. But obviously that's why I'm seeking clarification.
Thank you for raising that, and we can follow that up, Councillor Ann, because yeah, we do definitely need clarity about the reference, and there may be some confusion there. Clearly, from my response, there's clearly some confusion. So we'll follow that up, and thank you for raising it.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
You can note that in the minutes, please, that we're awaiting clarification of that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Ann, for that. Okay, so We've had proposers and seconders, if we could all show on the minutes. Thank you very much. Anyone against? No, those are carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 5, minutes of the informal meeting of Overview and Scrutiny Committee chairs and vice chairs, pages 16 to 21. Have we a proposer and seconder? Councillor Hannah, you were there. Yes. Councillor Chris, second. If everyone would like to show. Thank you. Any against? No. Thank you. Those are carried. Oh, plenty of minutes this morning. Item 6, minutes of the Common Opportunities Board, pages 22 to 23. This meeting was held on the 6th of February. Could I have a proposer and a seconder, please? Anyone? Councillor Louise and Councillor Chris would all like to show. Thank you very much. Anyone against? No. Okay, those are carried as well. Item 7, questions to cabinet members. There are none. And item 8 will now go to review the Finance and Resources Forward Work Programme, pages 24 to 32. And Dawn Hughes, our Scrutiny and Committee Services Officer, is going to present the Forward Work Programme. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Chair, and morning members. Just a very quick update. So as requested by the chairs and vice chairs, I've started devising a draft forward work programme for this committee for the next municipal year. And this is on pages 24 to 32. I will be emailing this committee shortly, probably sometime this week, with the draft forward plan, asking if you have any scrutiny topics, obviously subject to the completion of a scrutiny topic form, and then we can start looking at having a proper forward work programme for the forthcoming year.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Any questions, members? Oh, Councillor Stephen first and Councillor Gareth. Councillor Stephen.
Just note on page 25, Mockshire Commerce Project Board, Finance and Resources Scrutiny Member, Councillor Paul Locklock. No longer...
Stephen, I can't hear you. Keep close to your mic, please.
Come to your mic, thank you.
Councillor Paul Locklock is no longer a member of the Finance and Resources Committee. I think that position has been taken by Gareth, if I'm correct.
Yes, it has been amended since we published this agenda.
That's lovely. Thank you, Councillor Stephen. Councillor Gareth next.
I know it's something I only became aware of last week, but should we have something on that forward work programme probably for the next meeting or sooner to discuss the fact that with the banification of the national insurance that's coming to Wales, that it could have a detrimental effect on our budgets, bearing in mind that we've got really low reserves and we've got no contingency built in there unless we've had some assurances that the Welsh Assembly government knew this was coming and have actually got it covered. It could have some major implications on our budgets going forward, and it's probably something my personal view is that we should need to look at sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, it's unlikely that we'll get clarity. I think, although there was discussion, I think, on the floor of the Senate last week around the issues there, but we are unlikely to get clarification about our position until I think about June. I think so. Until we get that actual position, it's very difficult for us to have a conversation. So I suspect it will be included in Amanda's report that will probably come in July anyway, won't it, Amanda? Around.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, well, I guess two things. You know, to the extent that we've made assumptions within the budget, then obviously they were made apparent through the budget reports in terms of what those assumptions were. We won't, as Rhian says, get clarification from Welsh Government about what funding we're going to get, and therefore whether the 4 million funding stream that I included in the budget will come to fruition or not. And I say there's obviously sort of detail going on, but I will be reporting it, yeah, as part of the quarter outturn and potentially, you know, in other reports, the outturn, although it's not directly relevant to the outturn, but if we get information that's useful in that context, then I can report it. But I'll certainly be seeking to update in the first quarter outturn what the position is, because obviously by then what we will have then as well is a much more accurate position of what we think it's going to cost us, because as I explained at the time the budget was set, estimating the cost to us was actually comparatively difficult because it relied on a combination of people as opposed to full-time equivalents. So it made it a little bit more difficult. But having said that, I have recently just done some more detailed work again, actually trying to do a new estimate, and it was thankfully around the same level that I'd estimated before. But obviously, once we get the actual cost, then that will be a much better indication. But yeah, as soon as we get clarity on it, I will seek to report it. But you know, the issue of coming sooner is we would just be talking theoreticals, as it were.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy with that. I apologise. I thought it was getting to the point where they were able to tell us exactly what we'd be getting. But it's too much to hope for, really, isn't it?
Or not getting, as the case may be, Councillor Gareth. Thank you very much. Next point, Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I was wondering if we could possibly bring up, or how soon we could bring up reports on the Civic Hall back to the committee, just to give them an update.
Hi, I am chasing project managers for all their project boards and updates, so that is part of my, I am looking at that.
Thank you for that, Councillor Shaw. Thanks, Dawn. We'll speak about that later on today. We've got online Councillors Anne and Andrew. Councillor Anne.
Thanks, Chair. A couple of things, Dawn, from me. I think for the particular meeting, I've taken a particular look at the forward work plan, because this is the start of the 4th year of this council term. So I'm conscious that we really need to be looking and scrutinising in depth. I mean, one of the first points I'd like to make is on page 32, there is no longer a date for the report on Mochtra Commerce Park, and there is not a date for the
Do you want to turn your camera off? Can you just turn your camera off? Your voice is breaking up. Could you say that again?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. On page 32, Dawn, there are 2 dates missing. One is for Mochtra Commerce Park update, and the other one is for the asset management plan to be formally put through for scrutiny for this committee. Both a disappointment, particularly Mochtra Commerce Park, because there was a recommendation that was unilaterally supported, or unanimously supported, I should say, for the Commerce Park for us to have a report next month in May. Mochtra Commerce Park, as we know, continues to be quite a concern for our residents. Obviously, it's been mothballed now for something like 9 years, more or less, and obviously it's costing this council money that it needs for other areas of the business. So I don't understand why the date's been removed when it was specifically agreed for a date in May for a report to be brought. We last had a report 7 months ago, and obviously 9 years in, I think it's really important that all members understand the progress or lack of progress, if that's the case, that's being made. So perhaps Chair / Dawn could get that date put back for May into our forward work plan.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anne. Matt's going to come in on this as the responsible officer.
Chair, it's just a matter of, it's an update report, so unless and until there's something meaningful to update the committee on, there wouldn't be a point coming back to the committee with the report. So as soon as there is something that we need to update the committee on, then we'll bring a report. It's just that there's nothing won't be anything meaningful to update on by May.
Could we not have a report covering the update on legal fees and all matters like that? I think it is really important, as Councillor Anne says, given the public interest in this. I think that would be really helpful to bring a report on that. Would be great.
Well, I mean, a report simply on what the fees are today, Chair, again, there wouldn't be really much substance on a report purely on fees. I mean, that's, I don't know whether Green has anything to add there.
In terms of the risks that we're carrying, I think it would be really good to have an update for members. It'd be really helpful. Green, do you want?
Yeah, I take the point, and clearly I fully understand the need to update. I fully understand that, but we have to balance that with the need to bring a meaningful report, and you know it is taking a lot of our time. I'd like to assure members that it is a focus of ours, but we are, and I need to be careful what I say here in an open session, but we are in the position that we are considering matters in line with the court timetable. So I would ask that you bear with us. We will bring an update as soon as practicable when there's something to update, because at the moment we're in the same position as we were when we last brought the update, and therefore you know we want to make best use of your time as a committee as well. So hopefully as the next few months come, we'll be in a position to assess that. But as Matt says, purely to discuss fees between the last time it came here and now, I'm not sure that's a good use of this committee's time, to be honest. But I do give the assurance, once we have a position to update, that we will bring a report to this committee.
Chair, can I come back?
You can indeed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I wasn't just asking for a report on fees. I mean, I would expect a report on actions, on progress, and Rena's delicately touched on other matters which I'm not prepared to go into, but which we're all aware. And I think it was on the basis of the significant things happening in this year that we agreed as a committee that we wanted an update report in May. So I'm really disappointed, because if there's nothing to report, that's a real concern. This Mochtra Commerce Park has been mothballed and a real drain on this council's resources for 9 years. We just seem to be walking into the next 5 years with nothing to report here. And I know that sounds quite brutal, but you know, 9 years of actually limping through this with no progress. And as I say, this is the 4th year of this administration, and it will be over in a flash. And are we just going to wait now for the 15-year year mark where we actually get some significant sort of change here? I'm really disappointed as a member of this Finance and Resources group, but obviously I'll leave it there in terms of Mochtra Commerce Park. Just moving on, I mean, I think there are other mothballed buildings within the estate, and Sian has quite rightly mentioned Conway Civic Hall. I mean, it's a real eyesore in one of our key assets from a tourism sort of perspective, as well as a resident perspective. So can I just, you know, join with Sian in saying, can we have a fairly speedy report on progress or lack of it? To just continue the theme of work to dispose of the Civic Hall in Conway. And I would really also add in there the Heath in Claravechan. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Anne. We've got the asset management report coming to our next committee in, where are we now, April? It's May. Yes, coming to the May committee. So
I think that's just the disposal policy. It's not the asset management plan, as I understand, according to the forward work plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's going to give you a high-level overview of the asset management plan as well. So from that, I presume you'll make some recommendations or not, as the case may be. Hence why I've not put a date for the actual asset management plan.
So is there an asset management plan to discuss then, Sian, in completeness? Because obviously I've been lobbying for this to be raised in its profile and its urgency. I mean, we've got an asset management group that still hasn't met, and obviously still hasn't a clue of what's on the asset management plan. And we've been assured for the last 3 or 4 months that it was on its way. So I don't understand why we can't have the whole plan. and obviously why the asset management group is not meeting, even in advance of it coming to this committee, so that we can ensure that, you know, it's fit for purpose, because that was what part of our sort of remit. So again, just disappointed. I do see that we've got, as I say, the disposal policy, but that's only one part of a bigger picture, and asset management is a key priority as part of our financial resilience going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Anne, Rian's going to come in.
Yeah, can I ask Councillor Anne if, you know, it is on the forward work plan, and as Dawn mentioned, there will be a high level look at what the asset management will look like, and that will engage then the processes that you're talking about. It's bringing that to you at that point so that you can help steer it, I think is the idea here. So I'd ask that you bear with us and have a look at the report once it's before making judgment, because there will be an opportunity in May for you to consider this. On the Mochra Commerce Park point, I would make the point that members were made abreast 7 months ago of the position, and I'm not going to go into detail of that, but it's not the case that there hasn't been progress, and I would refer you back to that meeting, Councillor Anne, that set out exactly the position. Now, we can't discuss it in open session here, but I would refer you to that. And as I said, we will bring a report back once those processes are in train, so that we can keep you informed. I give you that assurance. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Anne. Maybe we could discuss this in chairs and vice chairs today. I think that would be really helpful. There's obviously several reports that should be coming to us, so we will discuss that in chairs and vice chairs. Thank you, Dawn.
And Chair, to just make one final point as well, and it's on a different matter. I've been looking at the Conway Opportunities Board minutes that we've just noted today, and I've noticed it in the last sort of 12 months. And really, this board doesn't seem to be operating strategically in terms of bringing forward ideas, suggestions, which was part of its remit when it was put together. And I know it was actually asked by the suggested by the peer review group that it really ought to be evaluated, if not sort of redevised in terms of its sort of purpose. I mean, it seems to be a monitoring group, and always seems to be fairly short in duration. And therefore really question its what added value apart from monitoring, but it's monitoring a programme board structure, a project board structure that's already got monitoring structures in place. So, you know, from a productivity point of view and use of resources point of view, I just wonder if we could have a report on the strategy for the Conway Opportunities Board going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anne.
Yeah, it's a fair point, Councillor Anne, and it is something that we're looking at as part of the resilience strategy that we're developing at the moment around the role of an accountant governance structure to that. So yeah, absolutely, it is something that we will want to consider and will form part of that resilience strategy when it comes before you. So yeah, it's again, it's another one that will come as part of that. So yeah, hopefully that will be in the next couple of months. I think there's an action plan update coming, and then follow that with the resilience strategy for your consideration.
Okay, thanks, Reen.
Thank you, Councillor Anne. Next, we've got Councillor Gareth. Was it on this same point?
Yes, I was just going to pick up. I was going to suggest maybe as a compromise on Councillor Anne's point regarding Mochra Commerce Park, maybe we should be seen to be actually scrutinising this, and maybe it's a case of having a verbal update from Rhyn and Matt in a closed session rather than the whole caboodle of reports and things like that. But at least as a scrutiny committee and as councillors, we can be seen that it's on the agenda. There's a verbal update. Councillors can ask any questions they want and express any concerns, and it's seen that there's actually something being done about it and there's some scrutiny being done on it, without going to the whole rigmarole, as you say, work and hassle of actually reproducing reports that have been produced in the past. Yeah.
Are you happy with that, Rhyn?
We'll give it some thought. We'll give it some thought.
Lovely, thank you. Next, we've got Councillor Andrew online.
Thank you, Chair. Lovely morning it is.
Is it?
I just a little bit of clarity, please, off somebody. It's forming around what Councillor Ann said. I used to be chair of the Asset and Management Task Group. We were set up to scrutinise and help form the next layer of asset management plan. On page 27, it says the disposal policy to provide a high-level outline of the asset management plan and seek approval for the revised disposal policy to come to this committee on the 12th and then presumably be rubber stamped by Cabinet on the 13th. The Task and Finish Group have had no input in this at all, which I don't find satisfactory, but there may be a clarity around it where, as previous comments were said, there'd be further input. But after Cabinet, if somebody could please update me. And again, the asset management plan, which or strategy, which on page 32 there is no date. I particularly kept off Blevins back because obviously he's had a very important task to do in the last year or so with Adnoddau. So a bit of clarity, please.
Right, thank you very much, Councillor Andrew. We just which cabinet member would address this ring, please?
Well, it would be. I think it would be around assets. Would be Councillor Nigel. Would be around the disposal policy.
Right. Okay. And is Councillor Nigel online? No. Oh, right. Okay. Councillor Charlie, I don't know if you're with having the finance brief.
No, just to say that work is ongoing, as Andrew pointed out. Ladden's been very busy.
Charlie, can't hear you, mate. Can't hear you.
Yeah, no, just Andy, happy to pick that up with you outside the meeting. That work is ongoing, as you pointed out. There's been a huge amount of work in OAS in getting the move into cloud.
Yeah. No,
I'm happy to pick that up with you outside the meeting.
Quite aware of that. That's why I've never pushed the button. But again, it does seem the Task and Finish Group is still listed on as part of the groups for this committee, and it's produced a useful function. I think you were on it as well, Charlie, to be able to scrutinise and actually advise on policy and formulate things before it came to finance. So it seems to be missed or overlooked if we're going to go with a report and then a cabinet decision afterwards. Thank you.
Happy to pick up.
And Chair, can I just point out that I think it's not just
Oh, and turn your camera off. You're frozen again.
And Councillor, as I made previously, so yeah. Apologies. Just saying, can Charlie update all of this committee, because obviously Andrew's touching on the same point I made earlier, and I don't think it's just for a conversation with Andrew, because I think this is in the interests of all scrutiny members to understand what's going on and why in terms of the role of the asset task and finish group and obviously the actual status of the asset management plan. Thanks, Chair.
I'll speak to Andrew in the first instance, and as chair of that group, and then there is a report coming, but I'm happy to develop that further. But let me speak to Andrew first, and then we'll see what the most appropriate way is forward, if that's okay.
So if you could speak to, say, Councillor Andrew and Councillor Nigel and find out the situation. Thanks, Councillor Charlie. That would be really helpful. And online now, next we've got Councillor David online.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On the people strategy and supporting our workforce, recently I have had a number of complaints about the nappy collections, the blue bin collections, about cardboard and refuse collections, and I've contacted ERF and I'm told that
Councillor David, that'll be for the economy and place forward work
Chair, that's the people strategy in the forward work programme, supporting the workforce. The point I'm making, if we don't have cover for people when they're off sick, staff when they're off sick, we don't have cover for people to go on holiday, then we're not supporting the workforce, and that's the point I'm trying to make.
This is on the agenda later, so you can bring it up there.
Right, but it is an important point to make. We need to support the workforce, and we need to have sufficient staff to be able to cover, because residents are complaining when the cardboard's not collected, nappies are not collected, refuse is not collected. Thank you.
We'll cover this. Thank you, Councillor David. So, no one else on the forward work programme? That was a lively one, wasn't it, for the start on a Monday morning? Okay, let's go. Right. Yes, Dawn, tin hat on next time. Thank you. Right, we've had that. Could we have a proposer and seconder to agree? Councillor Chris. Anyone second? Councillor Hannah to second. People could show in support, please. Thank you. Anyone against? No. Oh, was that Councillor Tristan? Was your hand late? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, thank you. So that's carried. We now move on to thank you very much. Lovely. Okay, we come on to item 9A, Work Welsh Scheme Evaluation Report 24-25, pages 33 to 62. And we've got Councillor Dilwyn Roberts here, Cabinet Member for Culture and Leisure. He's going to introduce the item, and Nia Lewis is Welsh Language and Translation Services Manager, is going to present the report. So thank you very much. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Ac yndi, mae'n bleser cael dod ar adroddiad yma o'ch blaenau chi fel Pwyllgor Chraffu. Mae yna waith arbennig wedi bod yn mynd ymlaen. Fel ydych chi'n gwybod, mae'r gwaith wedi cael ei ariannu gan Llywodraeth Cymru trwy Ganolfan Dysgu Cymraeg Cenedlaethol. Ac ar ôl iddo fo fod drwy'r Pwyllgor Craffu, mi fydd yr adroddiad yn cael ei gyflwyno yn ei ôl iddyn nhw. Dwi yn gyntaf isio diolch yn fawr iawn i Nia Aluned sydd yma man yn ochr i, a pwy bynnag arall sydd wedi bod yn ymwneud efo hwn i'w drefnio, felly dynnu'r arian lawr a'i drefnio. Mae o wedi bod, mae'r gwaith sydd wedi cael ei wneud wedi bod yn rhagorol. Diolch hefyd i Gwynol, Pencampwr yr Iaith Gymraeg wrth gwrs, ac hefyd i Mena y tiwtor. Ond mae diolch mwyaf hefyd, neu diolch mawr iawn hefyd, i'r dysgwyr sydd wedi cymryd mantais o'r cyfle yma. Un ohonyn nhw'n arbennig, fedrai'n peidio sôn amdani wrth bod hi'n ista reit omlaen i yn fama, sydd wedi gwneud, fel cynghorydd, wedi gwneud gwaith rhagorol iawn yn dysgu'r iaith ac yn medru sefyll fyny a cynnal sgwrs. Ac dwi yn llawn edmygedd a hefyd cynghorwyr eraill a swyddogion sydd wedi gwneud yr ymdrech. Be mae hyn wedi olygu hefyd ydy bod y rhain sydd wedi llwyddo yn dysgu, maen nhw wedi dylanwadu ar bobl eraill hefyd i wneud ymdrech i ddefnyddio rhywfaint o'r iaith Gymraeg. Ac hefyd mae hynny yn ei dro yn cryfhau yn statws ni fel cyngor y bod ni yn gyngor sydd yn cefnogi dwyieithrwydd. Mae yna sylwadau, a mae hein werth i darllen sydd wedi yn rhawo fi yn gry, ydy'r sylwadau mae'r dysgwyr wedi rhoi. Sylwadau arbennig i Mena y dysgwyr sydd wedi bod yn dysgu. A mae rhaid bod i wedi gwneud gwaith rhagorol iawn. Dwi'n llawn edmygedd o'r dysgwyr yma, fel dwi wedi dweud, ac gai ddiolch iddyn nhw am gymryd mantais o'r cyfle, ac dwi'n gobeithio y bod y dysgwyr yma yn sylweddoli ac yn gwerthfawrogi yr rhan maen nhw'n chwarae yn rhoi y statws yma i'r sir. Ac hefyd y bod ni sydd wedi bod digon ffodus i dyfu fyny yn ddwyieithog, y bod ni yn wirioneddol gwerthfawrogi yr ymdrech mae'r bobl yn wneud i bod yn ddwyieithog. Felly ar hynna o eiriau, na i basio ymlaen i Nia Aluned yn fama i fynd drwy'r adroddiad efo chi. Diolch fawr, Cadeirydd.
Diolch, Councillor Dilwyn.
Nia. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Fel welwch chi, pwrpas y cynllun Cymraeg gwaith ydy cryfhau sgiliau Cymraeg yn y gweithle. Unwaith eto, diolch i fuddsoddiad anhygoel y Ganolfan Dysgu Cymraeg Cenedlaethol. Brwdfrydedd y tiwtor, a gwaith caled y dysgwyr, mae'r cynllun wedi bod yn llwyddiannus iawn eto eleni. Mae'r cynllun yn talu ar ei ganfed i'r cyngor wrth i fwy o staff fynd ati i ddefnyddio eu sgiliau Cymraeg yn y gweithle, gyda chwsmeriaid, a rhai hyd yn oed yn cyflwyno adroddiadau mewn cyfarfodydd cyhoeddus. Llongyflliadau mawr iddyn nhw, ac hefyd mi nath na 9 ohonyn nhw wneud arholiadau yn ystod y flwyddyn a llwyddo gyda marciau uchel iawn, felly llongyflliadau mawr iddyn nhw hefyd. Mi newch chi weld bod nifer o gyrsiau wedi cael eu cynnal yn ystod y flwyddyn, gyda chroesdoriad gwahanol wasanaethau'r cyngor, mae hyn i weld yn 2.1.6. Mae'r cyrsiau i gyd yn rhai gyda chyswllt tiwtor sef Mena. Fe welwch eleni ein bod wedi datblygu y darpariaeth 1 i 1 hefyd, gyda 2 bennaeth a'r arweinydd sydd yma bore yma yn cael sesiynau 1 i 1 efo'r tiwtor. Blwyddyn lwyddiannus unwaith eto fel y gwelwch. Ers ysgrifennu'r adroddiad yma, mi ydyn ni wedi datblygu ein cynllun sgwrsio unwaith yn rhagor hefyd. A bu Andy Wilkinson, un o'r dysgwyr am una, yn sgwrsio ar dysgwyr sydd ar fin mynd i lefel canolradd wedi bod yn dysgu ers 19 mis. A chryw arall ar lefel sylfaen am ein profiadau ni o'r cynllun sgwrsio. Mae Andy a Mina'n sgwrsio gyda'r gilydd bron yn ddi-ffail ers cychwyn y cynllun dros 2 blynedd yn ôl, pan oedd Andy ei hun ar lefel sylfaen. Mae'n wych gweld cymaint o enwau ar ein rhestr aros eto, ac rydw i'n falch bod cwrs mynediad 1 newydd sbon yn cychwyn ar ôl y Pasg, ac un arall ym mis Medi. Eleni, am y tro cyntaf, mi fydd na ddosbarthiadau ar bob lefel, sef mynediad, sylfaen, canolradd ac uwch, sy'n newyddion gwych i'r cyngor. I gloi, hoffwn ddiolch i Mena am ei holl waith yn dysgu'r dysgwyr, i'r dysgwyr eu hunain am yr holl ymdrechion ac am ddefnyddio'r Gymraeg sydd ganddynt, ac wrth gwrs i'r ganolfan am y buddsoddiad. A hoffwn hefyd ategu sylwadau'r cynghorydd Gwennol, i roi her i holl siaradwyr Cymraeg yn cyngor, i siarad Cymraeg yn gyson mewn pwyllgorau ac yn y gweithle, mwyn rhoi cyfle i ddysgwyr glywed ac ymarfer eu sgiliau Cymraeg nhw. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi am wrando, ac os oes yna unrhyw gwestiynau, bydd fwy na bodlon tuo'i ateb. Diolch.
Diolch, Nia. Matt's going to come in now in Welsh.
Diolch i chi am yr adroddiad, Nia, Mena a'i Eluned. I think we are lucky iawn to have the opportunities that we have to dysgu Cymraeg here at Conway, and to have such an engaging and enthusiastic tutor in Mena. And I'm also like to say I'm grateful to the National Centre for Learning Welsh for the important investment that we received from them. And just finally, I think it's great to see so many positive comments from all our learners about their experiences of learning Cymraeg here at Conway.
Councillor Louise first question.
Na I siarad Cymraeg cyntaf, but don't bother with the translation. I'll translate as I go along, because otherwise it'll confuse everybody. Dwi wedi bod dysgu Cymraeg am 2 flwyddyn, so I've been learning Welsh for 2 years. Ond rhaid I mi ymarfer bob dydd, and I must practice every day. Ond mae'n anodd mewn siombre, it's difficult in the chamber, I arando a siarado Cymraeg. It's difficult to listen to Welsh speakers, because as I was doing then, and you've got such a good accent and clear for an English speaker. So it's really easy to listen to Dilwyn, and I could pick up what he was trying to say, but when you started, there was no chance. So I think the problem in chambers is that as soon as the language comes out, we all go like this to listen to the English, because obviously it's important debate and we need to understand what's happening. So I was thinking about trying to have some phrases within the chambre that we would all be able to understand, and particularly from the chair, if it's a Welsh speaking chair. But we're not hearing Welsh in the chambre because we've put the leads on. So it is difficult for members to be immersed in the Welsh language in council land. And then with the scheme itself, obviously, because I'm not a worker in Coed every day, it's hard for me to make the squash. But I've gone on my own journey now, so I'm with Cambrian University and I'm doing the Silvine course. So it once this started me, and then I'm off fitting it into how we would like to do it. But the point is, it's learning a new language. So we learn French or German or Spanish or Welsh. It's really hard, and you have to commit to it. You can't pick it up incidentally. That's just, you've got to sit down and learn the grammar and the structure of it. And I think people struggle because they think, oh, I'm just not getting it because they're just not picking it up. You've got to commit as if you were going to learn French or German. That's what you've got to do to learn it. And I think once you get over that hurdle, Sunday nights is my Welsh night, and then Monday I'm online all evening. That's what you've got to do. And it is hard, but as I say, this course is a really good start. It really got me into it. And I'm ahead of Matt, but you're going to catch up with me soon. So, Dr. Barry-Allen for everything. Thank you.
Diolch, Councillor Louise. Very impressive. Councillor Gareth.
Diolch. Mae'n amlwg bod yna lot o waith da yn cael ei wneud efo'r dysgu Cymraeg ma. Ond o'n i jyst yn edrych ar y niferau sydd wedi cwmpo allan. A mae yna rhai'n dweud bod nhw wedi newid swyddi, mae yna rhai'n dweud bod y gwaith wedi tyfu bod nhw methu wneud y cwrs, mae yna saith yn dweud bod nhw'n rhy brysur i wneud o. Mae yna tua 14 sydd wedi cwmpo allan sy'n nifer sylweddol. So ni jyst yn meddwl be da ni'n wneud fel cyngor i drio wneud yn siŵr bod y dysgwyr yma sydd isio dysgu Cymraeg, sydd wedi wneud y commitment i ddysgu Cymraeg, a mae o'n lot o commitment fel oedd Louise yn dweud, bod ni yn gallu roed yr amser iddyn nhw gario ymlaen hefo'r cwrs a dysgu Cymraeg, sy'n hollol bwysig. Diolch.
Diolch, Councillor Gareth. We've got next. Oh, you want to come back?
Yeah, just I ddod yn ôl ar hynna. Mae yna lot o bethau sydd yn digwydd i drio cadw'r dysgwyr yn y dosbarthiadau. Mae yna rhai pethau'n anffodus wedi mynd yn herbyn i lenni dipyn i gadael a falle. Ond wrth gwrs mae gennym ni ystafell ddosbarth yn mynd i fod yn ôl yn Coed Pella yn fuan. Felly, da ni'n gobeithio bod hynny hefyd am wneud gwahaniaeth oherwydd ar hyn o bryd mae rhai o'r dysgwyr yn teithio i fodlodeb neu ar-lein oherwydd bod yr ystafell ddosbarth ar fin cae am y tro. Felly, da ni'n gobeithio bod cael ystafell ddosbarth yn Coed Pella lle fydd pobl yn gallu gweithio am dipyn, mynd lawr i'r dosbarth ac yn ôl fyny yn sydyn, bod hynny hefyd am helpu o ran pwysau gwaith y dysgwyr hefyd. Diolch.
Just i ategu hynna, dwi'n meddwl, mae'n debyg bod na rhaid i disgyn allan. O ran canran heini sydd yn parhau, mae hwnnw'n uchel. A mae nhw'n cael cefnogaeth rheolwyr i roed amser i un ochr i wneud o. Y pwynt hefyd swn i'n neud ydy, mae'r ffaith bod pobl disgyn allan ddim o reidrwydd yn meddwl nad oedd o ddim yn werthfawr iddyn nhw. Mae nhw'n gallu defnyddio mwy o Gymraeg oherwydd bod nhw wedi wneud rhan o'r cwrs, neu di cario ymlaen am gyfnod, na fysa nhw wedi bod cynt. Ac o ran ein polisi ni bellach, mae o i bobl ddefnyddio gymaint o'r iaith a maen nhw'n teimlo'n gyffyrddus yn gwneud hynny. Wedyn, dwi ddim yn edrych arno fo fel negyddol bod mae bobl wedi methu cario ymlaen. Mae o'n golygu bod nhw wan yn gallu defnyddio mwy o'r Gymraeg nag oedden nhw gynt. A dwi'n meddwl bod hynny, os da ni'n troi ar ei ben, mae hynna'n bositif. Hefyd, dwi'n meddwl wneith ni ategu, mae nifer o hain sydd wedi disgyn allan, maen nhw'n dieddol ddod nôl mewn pan maen nhw efo amser. A mae pawb, sefyllfa personol, pawb yn wahanol dydy. Ond dwi'n meddwl bod o'n bwynt digon teg, ond mae'r pwynt mae ni yn neud, dwi'n meddwl bod dosbarth penodol yn Coed Pella, ac bydd y staff y swyddfa le a bydd rhan helaeth o'n nhw yn Coed Pella, sydd yn neud o'ch bach mwy hwylus hefyd i gael y wyneb na.
Diolch. Dwi'n meddwl mae hynna yn roed reassurance da, cos mae o'n bwysig mewn ffordd, a mae'n amlwg da chi'n gweld hynny, os ydy rhywun wedi roed ei llaw i fyny a dweud bod nhw eisiau dysgu Cymraeg, yndi, weithiau mae nhw, os ydyn nhw wedi cwmpa allan, da ni'n cadw mewn cysylltiad efo nhw ac yn gallu dod â nhw nôl i fewn, cos mae a willing volunteer is worth 1,000 pressed men, yn dydi, a mae rhain and willing volunteers. Diolch.
Diolch, Councillor Gareth. We've got Councillor Dilwyn coming back in briefly. Then we've got Councillors Gronwy, Charlie, Nia and Gwenol.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Dim ond un peth bach yn fyr sydd yn rhafofi di'r pwynt ar eich cynghorydd Louise wneud yn gynharach nad ydych chi ddim yn clywed yr iaith Cymraeg yn y siambar os ydych chi'n gweithio'r list ffona. Ac mae o'n rhywbeth hynod o bwysig i ystyried ac fe sy'n gwneud ddiddordeb bach cael sgwrs efo Louise i weld be fedrwn ni wneud i hwylso mwy ar hynny. Ac hefyd, dwi'n euog yn hun, datblygu gallu gael cyfnod o jyst sgwrsio tu allan i Pwyllgor hefyd. Felly jyst, nawn ni ystyried hynny a gweld beth sy'n bosib wneud. Diolch yn fawr.
Microphone.
It's just the first 5 minutes of every council meeting, siarad Cymraeg.
Okay. Next, online, Councillor Gronwy.
Just cael un ffwrdd o mute. Diolch a diolch i'r Dilwyn a'r swyddogion am yr adroddiad sydd yn hollol o safon uchel ofnadwy. Dwi am cyfeirio at un beth sy'n gryna'n gwneud i bod erioed ydy y ffaith bod ni'n gyfod dysgu bobl bod nhw'n dechrau yn ei gyrfal gwaith neu ail ymarfer o'r Gymraeg. I mi, yn danos bod yna wendid yn y system addysg yn ysgolion uwchradd, neu dwi'n dweud niferoedd o weithiau. Nes bod Cymraeg yn cael ei dysgu i'r un safon yn ysgolion uwchradd ni i gyd trwy Gonwy, Rydyn ni wastad yn y sefyllfa lle mae nifer o bobl ifanc, plant yn gadael ysgol, fydda iaith Gymraeg wedi cael ei dysgu yn eiraidd yn y marn ni, oherwydd diffyg adnoddau a fewn bob ysgol uwchradd i sicrhau bod y iaith Gymraeg yn cael ei dysgu yn gyflawn ac yn deg. So, dwi wedi codi hyn drwy'n sawl gwaith. Mae'n ddiddorol fel beth mae Gwynedd yn neud rwan efo ysgolion uwchradd. Sicr, dwi'n meddwl bod angen edrych ar y safon y Gymraeg sydd yn yr ysgolion uwchradd. Ond mae'n un peth cael ysgol arbennig fatha creuddyd, ond mae gweddill y plant oherwydd bod nhw'n dewis yn mynd i ysgolion uwchradd eraill, oherwydd rhesymau, bob math o rhesymau, yn cael yr iaith Gymraeg ar safon is yn y marn ni. Mae'n hen amser edrych ar hyn o ddifri i sicrhau bod pawb yn cael yr un cyfle i ymarfer ei ddysgu yn y iaith Gymraeg. Diolch.
Diolch, Councillor Gronwy. In the chamber, we've got Councillor Charlie.
Bore da, Cadeirydd, bore da pawb. Dwi'n mynd i treulio siarad dipyn bach yn Cymraeg rŵan. Dwi'n meddwl mae'r heniaeth yn bwysig iawn. Dwi'n hoffi, dwi'n mwynhau ddysgu Cymraeg efo Mena. Mae Mena'n tutor ffantastig. Mae gen i ddysgwrs Cymraeg bob dydd Gwener am y chwarter wedi 8. Dwi'n prisiwr, ond dwi'n hoffi iawn. Rhaid i mi ymarfer mwy. Dwi'n mynd i siarad yn Saesneg rwan. I do need to practice more, but it's difficult to have the confidence sometimes, and it's difficult to think when you do speak Welsh to somebody and they will think you're better than you are and will say Welsh back to you, and it gets slightly embarrassing. I know when I learned Gaelic back in the day in Nogledd Weddon, we had a thing called silver fonnia and a gold fonnia, which was a little ring, and it gave you an indication at the level somebody was at. So you weren't just the Scud Cymraeg, or you could get sort of semi-fluency in different levels, and I think it gave the person you were speaking to who was fluent a bit of a level that they could speak to you at. As Louise said, some people speak slower and it's a bit easier to understand, but it is a thing that if you know I can speak a little Bach, a certain Bach, then you would kind of reply to me maybe slightly differently, and it just breaks down that awkwardness sometimes. But I would absolutely wholeheartedly recommend it to anybody. It's a beautiful, beautiful language. Diolch.
Da iawn, Councillor Charlie. Next, online, Councillors Nia, then Gwenol. Councillor Nia.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Diolch o galon i Nia am ei adroddiad ac am uwcholeuo'r holl waith arbennig sy'n cael ei wneud yn y sir. A dwi'n deud hyn bob tro da ni'n cael adroddiad am y dysgu Cymraeg yng Nghonwy. Da ni mor lwcus bod y cyngor yn rhoi'r amser i'r swyddogion i dysgu, datblygu y sgiliau Cymraeg, dwi'n meddwl bod o'n wir yn arbennig. Dwi wedi cychwyn y tro cyntaf lenni, dwi'n ar y cynllun sgwrsio efo, efo un o swyddogion, a dwi wrth y modd bob wythnos yn sgwrsio efo hi. A hyder ydy'r broblem bob amser. Neges bach i'r cynghorydd Charlie, dwi'n hapus i sgwrsio efo Charlie yn Gymraeg. Os ydy Charlie eisiau cysylltu efo fi, nawn ni gael sgwrs bob hyn a hyn yn Gymraeg mwyn iddo fo fedru datblygu ei hyder hefyd. Ond mae'n amlwg bod Mena wir yn ysbrydoliaeth. Dwi'n meddwl bod ni angen clones o Mena, fel bod ni'n gallu cael mwy o Menas yn ysbrydoli mwy o bobl i ddysgu yr iaith sydd mor bwysig i lawer iawn ohonyn ni. Felly dwi'n hapus i gymeradwyo'r adroddiad ac i gymeradwyo i wanfon at y ganolfan dysgu Cymraeg Genedlaethol, a dyle bod ni'n hynod o falch o'r holl waith arbennig sy'n cael ei wneud, a llongyfarchiadau arbennig i bob swyddog, bob aelod o staff sy'n ymgymryd â'r cwrs yma ac yn datblygu sgiliau nes eu bod nhw'n rhugl. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch, Councillor Nia, and for that proposal as well. Last speaker, Councillor Gwennol.
Diolch yn fawr Gadeirydd am adael i mi siarad nad ydw i'n aelod o'r pwyllgor yma. Llongyfarchiadau i bawb ac yn arbennig llongyfarchiadau i'r cynghorydd ar arweinydd Charlie bore yma am, mae'n di roi surprise mawr i mi bod yn gallu siarad Cymraeg cystal oherwydd mi ath o mlaen am ta 2 neu 2 brawddeg bore yma ac oedd hynny'n beth braf iawn i glywed. Fel Nia, dwi'n hefyd yn gwneud y cynllun siarad, a chwbl ydy hanner awr i mi beth bynnag am 9 o'r gloch bob dydd Mercher, a dwi wedi clywed 2 gynghorydd bore yma'n siarad Cymraeg yn hollol rugl. Dwi'n siŵr sa chithau hefyd yn medru falle cynnig hanner awr i siarad hefo dysgwyr. Dwi wedi clywed bore yma'n dweud mae Cymraeg yn iaith anodd i'w dysgu. Wel, mae gen i ofn bod yr agwedd, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. Felly, chi'n gwybod, mae rhaid bod efo'r agwedd iawn i ddysgu. A dwi'n siŵr bod llawer ohono ni wedi mynd i wledydd lle mae Ffrangeg, Sbaeneg, Almaeneg yn cael ei siarad, ac wedi sicrhau bod ni'n medru deud, os gwelwch yn dda, diolch, bore da, nos dda, ac medru ordro yn yr iaith frodorol. Felly, falle swn i'n annog pobl i wneud yr ymdrech. Ac os oes yna unrhyw un isio chydig bach o gymorth efo gwybod sydd wedi ynganu gair neu geiriau Cymraeg, wrth gwrs fyswn ni'n bodlon iawn y rhoi cymorth efo hynny fyd. Felly, da iawn pawb a diolch yn fawr am godi calon a fore llun. Diolch.
Diolch, Councillor Gwennol, for that. Okay, members, we've had a proposer from Councillor Nia, the proposal on page 33. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Gareth, would everyone like to show in favour of this report? Thank you very much. Anyone against? No. That excellent report. Thank you very much indeed. Diolch. Right, we now move on to the next. Oh, our timing's gone well astray already, members. You'd be delighted to know. Item 10A, People Strategy Progress Report, pages 63 to 83. Councillor Chris Kay, to the Cabinet Member for Audit Policy and Performance, is going to introduce the item, and Fran Lewis, Head of People and Performance, will present the report.
Bore da, Cadeirydd, gobeithio eich bod yn iawn. It seems a while now that our People Strategy was published and went through democracy. That was back in March 2023. Just a reminder from me that this strategy basically sets out our key priorities to continue to support and develop our staff. So this comprehensive report in front of you shows progress, an update on our commitments, and highlights relevant information. I'm going to hand over to Fran to my left, our Head of People and Performance now, but I want to emphasize that our focus should be on people and their lived experience rather than just our obligation to comply with legislation. We must make sure our workplaces and our services are fair and inclusive for everyone. So I hand over to Fran now.
Diolch. Bore da pawb. Gosh, dwi'n teimlo dipyn bach o pressure i siarad Cymraeg hefyd bore yma. Fran dwi'n dysgu Cymraeg efo Mena. Dwi'n teimlo lwcus iawn i dysgu Cymraeg yn y gwaith. Dwi'n galw hi amazing Mena. Mae hi'n athrawes really, really dda. Phew, dyma.
Da iawn.
Heart rate come down. Okay, back to the case in hand. The people strategy. The more astute in the room will notice that actually the title of the progress report is from September. Life has moved on since then, but with different agendas, we've had to keep bumping the progress report back and forth. So it is a few months old. In that respect, just to highlight that in terms of the progress report, it is an update on the actions. Those of you who have referred back to the actual people strategy will note that there are a series of metrics that go with the people strategy. They've actually, some of them have been through democracy quite recently. There's quite a lot included within the employment monitoring report, but obviously they are year-end metrics. So I will be working on those stats now that we are into the new financial year, just to head that query off. In terms of the people strategy then, it mirrors the period of the administration. Those of you who have worked within Conway for many years will know that we did have a bit of a hiatus in terms of having a people strategy. So what I tried to do when I came into this post was write a strategy that set out our aspirations. That is an important word because I was very clear in the strategy that we couldn't afford everything that we wanted to do within there. So there are a number of actions within there that refer to exploring developments for our workforce, and they are labelled with a magnifying glass just so it's clear. And I'm still looking at different ways that we can build on grants or look at funding when the opportunity occurs. But I thought that was important to write a strategy that set our direction rather than what's within our final financial limits at the moment. So the strategy mirrors our staff journeys. It's under the headings in terms of how we make sure that we attract talent to the authority, that we give them a warm welcome, that we provide opportunity to learn, not just Cymraeg, but to upskill them in all areas of their work, to ensure that their working life is an enjoyable and pleasant one. We spent a lot of time in work. It needs to be rewarding, and focusing on reward as well. What can we offer as part of our overall package for staff? And then finally, in terms of leaving, making sure that just as you join the authority, that the way you leave the authority is also a good experience. And most importantly, that we gather that data through our exit interviews to make sure that we are completing that cycle of learning and reviewing from the staff experience. Within the report, I have done a summary. So all I'm going to do is highlight a few points from there and then come back to you, Chair, because obviously the report's fairly self-explanatory. One of our most significant achievements is to develop an inclusive Conway plan. That terminology is really important, shifting it away from our previous terminology of a strategic equality plan and focusing most importantly on people, making sure that we embrace diversity, that we are inclusive in all that we do, and in particular focusing on our anti-racism and our LGBTQ+ strategy. In terms of recruitment, we've done a huge amount of work in phase one. I stress phase one of the recruitment project in terms of a rebrand, relooking at our processes, relooking at how we bring applicants through the interview process so that we make sure that we are putting people at ease, that we are making it easy to apply to the authority, and that you know, we are an employer of choice. We're now working on phase 2, which is specifically around accessibility. So that's a project that I can update you on now. We've been successful in terms of applying for an impact project, which will start in September, which will specifically look at our inclusivity of people with a learning disability and how we make sure that we are making our processes and our jobs as accessible as possible to that particular cohort of applicants. In terms of onboarding, again, we've done a lot of work there. We've also published everything on our website so that it's there for any prospective applicant to look at, of making sure that when you are thinking about working for Conwy, or when you've been successful in being appointed to Conwy, we give you a warm welcome and make sure that you are aware what's on offer for staff, but also what's expected of staff as well. And that we set that standard in terms of our culture. Bilingualism, obviously just had a report on that. Particularly proud as well in terms of our involvement as learners with Ein Llais Cymraeg and making sure that we're using the languages as much as possible. Digital skills, this is going to be really prominent as we look at a digital work stream through the resilience strategy. We've got lots of potential ideas in terms of using tech to help us within our daily working lives, but we need to make sure, I'm very crude when I say this, that when we've plugged it in, our staff know how to maximise the use of that technology. So digital skills really, really important. And I've referred there to some examples where we are piloting AI, Copilot as an example there, but also we've been looking at other tech as well. In terms of the development of our staff, there's some really exciting opportunities going on in terms of career grade posts. That they're nothing new, that we've had career grade posts within the authority for many years, but certainly looking at how we can support staff who would like to progress to develop their skill sets so that they can qualify and apply for the jobs. We've also been focusing on leadership development. As you'll be aware, we had quite a turnover in terms of our senior management team, and therefore we've done quite a lot of work in terms of making sure we gel as a senior management team and that we develop that leadership skill set as well. We have a new, well, it's not so new now, it's a few years old, but those of you who've worked here for many years will remember the PDR process. That was replaced with the Conwy Conversation. We have been working to make sure not just that is embedded, but also that the recording side of the Conwy Conversation is upgraded as well. And we've got much better systems now in iTrent to record those conversations. In terms of staff engagement and trade union relations, obviously the Social Partnership Act is now in force. So really proud that we do have regular conversations with our trade unions. Don't always agree, but we have a good, strong professional relationship with our trade unions. And we are now in the process of working through new ways of looking at staff engagement, which again is really key to inclusivity. And I'm about to bring a report through to senior management team in the next couple of months as to how we do a bit of a refresh of staff engagement and make sure that we are truly listening to our staff and listening to their ideas. And finally, hybrid working review. Obviously, there's been lots of debates in the chamber around hybrid working. Work has been done, again, that came through committee in terms of relooking at our hybrid working approach for the 40% of staff who are office based. Mustn't forget that 60% of our staff are actually working out in the community. So Chair, that's just by a whistle stop tour of some of the things we've been working on, and obviously happy to take any questions. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Fran, for that comprehensive run through and your excellent report. Members, start. Councillor Louise.
Diolch for the adroddiad. Okay, you know what I'm going to say. I represent Llandudno. John Bright's is the school where most of my residents' families go. We talk about being fair and inclusive to everybody. But how do you square that, knowing that most of those children leaving John Bright's will not have the qualifications in Welsh language in order to apply for the majority of jobs here in this council? Because all that support's there, that wonderful support, but you need to get the job to get that support.
Yeah, fully aware of that, Councillor Louise, and in talks with Nia, and also how through wish Nia was still here now, how through the Welsh Language Commissioner we can look at that. My personal preference is that we should relook at the Welsh Essential, Welsh Desirable model and actually have a more step approach to Cymraeg, so that you have a level to work towards. But obviously we need to work to the Welsh language standards as well. So I'd much prefer to see in our recruitment approach that they were a lot clearer about the levels. We've noticed through our discussions through Ein Llais Cymraeg, the difference it makes if you change the question from do you speak Welsh to do you know Welsh, how that changes people's understanding and their own confidence levels, because we know where we have posts that are Welsh Essential, if we can't recruit to them after 2 attempts, we can drop the status to Welsh Desirable, and you often find then that people who apply are actually really competent in Cymraeg. It comes back to the hyder, doesn't it? The confidence. It would listen to us all Wenglish. Fantastic. And how we can rephrase that so that people understand we will support you, and that actually the reality is you know a lot more than you think. But it does come back to the Welsh language standards and working with the Commissioner, is my understanding.
So how do we progress this? Because I understand we've got Welsh language standards, but they are holding back our coastal children. So how do we progress that? How do we get that across?
As I said, I'm talking with Nia, and I wish she was still here because she'd be able to answer it better
It's
than
a
me.
political decision, isn't it? It's not just an office decision. I don't know whether we can have that conversation in a report or something, just to remind ourselves that I don't want my Llandudno families to have to move away for work. I don't know how we can bring that up in a conversation.
Councillor Dilwyn.
Ia, fyswn ni yn hoffi sgwrs ymhellach hefo cynghorydd Louise, dweud y gwir, ynglyn â hyn. Ac hefyd i gymryd fewn i beth oedd y cynghorydd Gromwy yn gynt hefyd, y pwysigrwydd yn y ffaith bod na blant a bobl ifanc sydd ddim yn cael digon o gyfle i fedru galw hunan yn rhugl. A wedyn, na, yn sicr, faswn i'n licio sgwrs ymhellach am hyn, tu allan i'r Pwyllgor, i weld os na gamau fedrwn ni gymryd sydd ar yr un pryd yn mynd i fod yn gadarnhaol i'r iaith Gymraeg a dwyieithwyr, a bod ni ddim yn glaswreiddio hynny. Glaswreiddio di gair dwi'n ddefnyddio am dilute, dwi'n gwybod ydy pawb yn ddefnyddio. Felly, os Cynghorydd Louise, fyswn ni fwy na bobl ysgwrtio.
Diolch. Councillor Dilwyn. Dawn just wants to pop in here.
Yeah, just a reminder that we do have a monitoring report on the Welsh Standards coming to the June meeting, and that is also concentrates on themes including recruitment, onboarding, learning, and employee engagement. So probably that's the best time maybe to bring this up, because Nia obviously will be in attendance then.
Lovely, thank you very much. So we've got online Councillor David and then Councillors Gareth, Sean and Anne. So Councillor David next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Going back to the point I made in the forward work programme about supporting our staff, there has been problems recently. Staff in ERF, there hasn't been cover for holidays, there hasn't been cover for sickness. Services like the nappy collection have not taken place. I think there's cardboard collections that have been missed. It does put an awful strain on the staff that they know that if they take time off for holidays that they're entitled to, or if they're off sick, that when they come back, they've got more extra work to do. This is a real problem supporting our staff. Can we ensure that we have proper cover, particularly for frontline staff that are going out doing very difficult jobs, that they're out meeting the public? Can we have the proper cover? Because it is a real problem, and it's a problem in my ward, and I think problem in other wards. Other councils have contacted me. There's problems in other wards with this. We have to have sufficient cover. So perhaps you could explain if we have a policy for getting it right now. You know, that if we see that we haven't got sufficient staff to cover everything when people are on holiday or unfortunately are off sick, can we put the staff in? These are frontline services. These are the services that the public sort of notice, and then we get the complaints when collections are not taking place. So that perhaps Mrs. Lewis could actually sort of give me an answer on that. Are we fully sort of covered for our staff in the frontline services? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David. Fran, do you want to come back?
Yeah, thanks for your support, Councillor David, and please do call me Fran. I feel old being referred to as Mrs. Lewis. Yes, we do have processes. We have a number of ways that we make sure that there is cover. Firstly, some services will have a pool of what's called casual staff, so that they can be called upon when there is sickness or there is leave. However, we also need to balance that with agency staff, because sometimes, you know, particularly within ERF, some of those calls need to be made at sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. So agency is still required in those areas. And just to point out, as required by FROSC, we are preparing a report on agency that will be coming in due course. In particular, your concerns around the nappy collection, fully appreciate for residents that is a frustration. It is something that ERF are looking at the moment. There are challenges in terms of recruitment, particularly around the nappy collection due to the nature of the work. And that is something that ERF are currently working on. So they are reviewing that service as a whole, looking at the size of the rounds, the number of staff in the vehicle, the type of container, and working with us in HR just as to how we can address that particular recruitment issue at the moment. But to answer your question, yes, we do have processes to make sure that there is cover, and fully appreciate your support for staff wellbeing. Diolch.
Thank you very much, Fran, and we look forward to that report coming, because we were hoping that framework would have reduced the issues that we're seeing, particularly in ERF, as mentioned. Okay, now we've got Councillor Gareth in the chamber.
Thank you. Fran, I was just looking at page 14, where you've put down that there's a backlog of HR policies and which needs review, and that we've employed somebody on a fixed term contract. I'm probably looking at it far too simplistically, but why haven't we got cooperation across all the councils in Wales, where there's a standard set of HR policies, or as a very minimum, there's agreement across North Wales councils for HR policies, where, you know, to my mind, then you've got one person doing the job for everybody, and if there's any changes, you've got standardization across all the councils. But more importantly, there's only one person who's having to look at it and change it for everybody, rather than every council having its own set of policies with the additional resources. And also then you get more variations in interpretations of legislation and policies and things. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. In terms of the backlog of HR policies, that's been something that was historical that I'm just trying to sort out now, really. The one of those situations where because of capacity, they've they've got so behind, we need that investment to get it back on track and then keep that process of regular review. And we are getting there through the appointment of a fixed term post. So that's great progress for us. In terms of why don't we have them for the whole of Wales? I guess that's historical in that councils have evolved their HR policies in different ways over many, many years. In order to reset and to work as one HR system across all 22 authorities, that's really significant amount of work, negotiation with all the various trade union organisations, because those nuances have developed over many years. What I can assure you, though, is that we're not working in a bubble. We have a really strong HR network through WLGA. There are regular discussions on what's called a community of practice, where HR professionals do share how they are working, share how they are progressing their policies, and act as a professional support for each other. Likewise, we also are subscribed to professional HR networks, the name of which has escaped me now, but we are part of a subscription which vastly helps us to do some of the work when we are updating our policies. But you will always have that local authority nuance to reflect the particular needs of that authority. But we do work across North Wales in particular and all of Wales when we are reviewing policies, but that's the reasons why they do differ.
Okay, and I can understand what you're saying is that the longer the time, you get variations on a theme. So, my second suggestion would be: is there not a local authority that we've got confidence in locally who've already updated their policies and things like that, and we just go, you've invented the wheel over there, thanks very much, let's bring it in, and so that we're working on updated policies, and then going forward we can actually save on resources in that we agree that there's one person who updates both counties' HR policies, so that we get that synergy and things going forward. Ideally, it'd be more than two councils working together, because then you start to get, those savings. It to me makes sense, but obviously I'm looking at it far too simplistic.
I think I can assure you that we're not working in a bubble here. We are talking to other authorities, but it was important to me to explain to you the history that they'd been left for so long that we needed to bring them back up to speed. So that's the reason why we're investing at the moment on a fixed term post. Not all of our policies need an update. I sound like I'm contradicting myself here, but my point was, when I came into post, is if they've not been reviewed for a few years, they need looking at. Now, that might be just to give the assurance that they're still relevant, they're still appropriate, move on. So not all of those policies need a complete rewrite. They might just be to reflect on new employment legislation, that kind of thing. And we do that. If there's employment law, then we don't leave them. They do get updated, just in case anyone thinks we're not current with employment law. We are. But yeah, it is just looking through that backlog that we need to bring Conwy up to speed, and we are doing that by talking to other authorities. But not every authority has the same structure as us. For example, we've just talked about waste. In Anglesey, waste is outsourced. So we are not mirror images of each other in every local authority. So it's just trying to take on those different nuances. But I can assure you, we are trying to work in a smart way. We're not just looking at Conwy and doing it in isolation. Where we can learn from others or be the leading light ourselves, then we are trying to do so.
I think I understand complications in it. Just seems there's a huge amount of duplication across Wales by everybody running their own variations of HR policies. But you know, it's a much bigger topic to discuss than what we're discussing now. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gareth. Councillor Chris just wanted to come in briefly.
Yeah, just
then,
briefly,
Chief
Chair,
Exec, before
just
we
to
go
say
back
that
to the rest of
Councillor Gromby and I will be going down to the Joint Council for Wales AGM on Friday at Adnoddau Wells, and that's a meeting of based on WLGA cabinet leads, and also the unions are well representative. So we'll be having, just quickly having a look at the agenda. It includes digitalisation and AI across Wales, managing technology across Wales, a toolkit for worker voice and procurement of AI systems across Wales. So a lot of things are happening across Wales, just to reassure you.
Yeah, Councillor Chris.
Yeah, and I think the point is well made, Councillor Gareth, and I think it comes to the point that collaboration is not necessarily of itself something that would save time and money. My experience is that they can be very complicated, very difficult. I think if you ask Matt and Dawn over there around, trying to align constitutions across Wales has been a task and a half, and we've ended up in a position where everybody is slightly different, but with a structure which has helped. But for me, I think the point Fran is making around the learnings from each other is much more important than having somebody to have one policy for everyone. If we maximise that would mean that we can save time, efficiency within Conwy, and then also that we share our expertise out there to help the general sector. So I think it's always put out there, isn't it, that one way we can be more efficient is if we collaborate. It's not necessarily the case. It has to be the right project for collaboration to make it worthwhile. So I think from my perspective, I think what's going on at the moment in terms of our HR policy is probably hitting that balance, the right balance there around getting them up to date, using the resource correctly for us, and then bringing things in when we need to from other local authorities. And as Chris said, I think as with all sectors, I think it's quite clear from the agenda for the national meeting is that AI and digital are in terms of the HR world is going to be a bit of a priority as well moving forward, which may help the point you're making around the best use of time. So yeah.
Yeah, Green. Councillor Sean.
Sorry, I know I'm going backwards a bit. I wasn't quick enough to put my hand up. Just talking the Welsh language, I absolutely agree with Councillor Louise, as I always do on this subject, because again, I'm over Aberconwy, and again, I don't believe there's enough learners speaking fluent Welsh leaving there, because it's treated as any other subject. There's many who have a star in Welsh, but they do not speak Welsh any other areas. I welcome reports coming in June if we have discussions over the criteria. I know people who've since gone and got the equivalent of half degrees in Welsh because of their employment, but that's once they're in their employment, and they would, as soon as they see Welsh Essential, they will not apply for the jobs. And it's unfortunate, that's the way it is, that's the way they feel. Yes, it's confidence, but a lot of them fully understand most of Welsh, most people talk in Welsh, but they would reply in English rather than in Welsh, and they don't get that practice, although they have to have it for their jobs. And I do welcome this time to change things as we see them. I fully welcome that.
Dear Councillor Sean. Franz, do you want to come back quickly?
Yeah, again, just to assure that if we can move this way, well, actually we did it with the Chief Exec's role. We've done it with heads of service, where we've made it much clearer. For example, rather than it just being Welsh Essential or Welsh Desirable, being clearer, actually what we'd like for this role is that you're able to hold a conversation in Welsh. So that's not the same as saying, a Welsh Essential fluent in Welsh, and being a bit clearer on the job role of, because you see the difference, don't you, in that people's ability to speak Welsh, siarad Cymraeg, but writing in Welsh it's different again, isn't it? It's just, yeah. minefield, not crack that one, that's for sure. And making it clearer on that. So, for example, if you are working in reception, is conversational Welsh fine? But actually, if your written Welsh isn't so good, that's not so relevant for that role. So that's what we'd like to move to. So it's much clearer to build people's confidence that conversational Welsh is what we're looking for this job. But that's something for another day, I think.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Fran. Right, now next is Councillor Anne online, then Councillor Paul in the chamber, and Councillor Grommy online. Councillor Anne.
Thanks, Chair, and I've just turned my camera off. I mean, Fran, thanks for a good report, for a good strategy, a good plan. I think having a strong people plan is essential in good times and even more important in changing times and bad times. And I think probably I would say that we're in changing times, if not bad times, given our financial resilience. I think you've made some good progress, having read the detail, again, some actions. And obviously it's clear for us all that lack of finance is impacting your ability to deliver in certain areas. Which obviously is a bit worrying. I mean, one of the things that I would sort of ask as a question before I go on to make a recommendation, I think as part of one of your first areas, I mean, we're talking about staff competence and culture stroke attitude is very much key to our success, and it is. And obviously you're doing well, it would appear, in terms of corporate induction and warm welcome, as you call it. One area that I think I've probably asked you about before that gives me a bit of cause for, not concern, but certainly to question, is about where we are in terms of delivering service induction and basic job training, because I'm not sure how progress is measured and reported in this area. We all know that in some of the reports that we do get, mandatory training, health and safety, safeguarding, to name just a couple, are not always where they need to be and should be. And obviously basic competence is key to productivity. Now, one of the things that you've decided to delete from this plan, and it's on page 80 and 81, is core competencies and safe working environment. So if you're not working on delivering sort of core competencies to ensure that we're assessing our staff against the job competence for delivery, where does that assurance come from?
Yeah, one of the reasons that we've closed down the core competencies project was the way it was set up was basically not sustainable. So we did a review in terms of the core competencies project, which had been running for many years before my time in post, just to look at what was it we were trying to achieve and how do we manage the situation in a sustainable manner. So what we came to conclude for the project closure was that a corporate approach to basically go through and it would create a huge spreadsheet of every single competency for every single job role. By the time you would have done it for every role within the authority, the ones you'd done at the start would be out of date, and the outcome of that was how do we then afford the training requirements for that particular role, because it was working on the assumption that anyone you'd be bringing into the authority had no skill set at all. So we re-looked at that process and came to the conclusion that actually for every job and we've done this through the recruitment project, we've been a lot clearer in terms of what the job specification is for each job. So at the point of recruitment, are we employing the right talent? Are we being clear about what's required for that skill set? And then obviously once you're, so there's your first point in that you're assessing at the recruitment level, you know, are you competent? Do you have the skill set for that job? But obviously, as you are enrolled and as you continue with your career with Conway, there is, of course, continued professional development and the need to upskill. And that's very much something that we are looking at through the learning and development plan. So again, really proud that I think we offer great value for money in our learning and development plan, given the corporate budget that we have. But we're working to make sure that there is a stronger link through the L&D plan to services in terms of the intelligence from services through their Conway conversations, through their team meetings, as to what is the skills gap there, and feeding that intelligence corporately to help shape where the L&D plan should focus. So, for example, this year coming ahead, I already know from intelligence that we need to focus on digital skills across the authority, and also we are keen to do more in terms of inclusive Conwy. So it's about getting that cycle of intelligence right, rather than having what was quite a bureaucratic project that we couldn't sustain, basically, and making sure that that cycle of life in terms of the Conwy conversation, SPRs, and feeding in workforce planning that we're working on at the moment, feeds through to the L&D plan, so that we are intelligence led in terms of what we are commissioning. So be assured, it's not that we've ditched it and we're not working on it. It was just that particular project wasn't sustainable for us.
Well, if I could just come back, Fran. So how do we sign people off in saying, obviously you recruit to a spec, fine. You don't assess for skill because you can't evaluate in an interview or recruitment sort of situation. But how do we, it's about how do we, what do we have to fall back to say that our staff have the knowledge and skills for the specific job that we're being recruited to, that is the Conway job, and particularly important when something goes wrong, because, you know, then everybody's all over everything in terms of, well, where's the training record, where's it been assessed, where's it been signed off. I understand you don't want a bureaucratic or overly bureaucratic sort of process, but, you know, in terms of how do we know we've recruited the right person when they've been there 12 weeks? And how do we know we've delivered the training and the development they need to actually do the core job, basic job, not learning and development beyond the level of being recruited and trained into the basic sort of function? That's a bit that I struggle with within Conway, because I don't see anywhere that we report on it, that we can evidence on it. And some of the reports that we do have, whether it be on health and safety incidents or health and safety training or safeguarding training, quite often we're not where we think we are, or we're not where we should be. And that just worries me as an organisation, that I don't have any visibility of the processes that actually gives members assurances, because there'll be lots of stories that will come from members about this happened in my ward and this didn't happen and that didn't happen, and actually the staff perhaps, you know, weren't aware or whatever. And I think it's an area of basic functionality and assurance in terms of competence that I'm just looking for, and I don't see where the evidence of it. Having a job spec, having a person spec is fine as a basic tool for recruitment, but it's not about for performance, and it's not about, if you like, ensuring that we only keep people who are, you know, a round peg in a round hole, and actually we're given a chance for them to be successful. That's the point that I was really making. So I think that answer still leaves my question for me on the table.
Thank you, Councillor Anne. You're going to do recommendation after this, after Fran's come back.
Yeah, please, yeah.
Yeah, no, they're valid points, Councillor Anne, and I appreciate your support. In terms of the recruitment process, so obviously there's that first level through the interview process of assessing if someone has the skill set for the job. They are then given a corporate induction. They're also given service level induction. And that has to be bespoke to the service, because obviously we hold a huge amount of different professional roles. So depending on what role you've been appointed to, there's a specific service induction for that particular role, which every service takes the new member of staff through. They're also on a 6-month probation period as well. So at the end of that 6 months, there is a review for a new member of staff. If we're not happy, we can extend that probationary period if need be, just to make sure that we are regularly reviewing that new member of staff. Going forward then, as I've touched on, we have the Conway conversation, which was the replacement for the personal development process, the PDR process. And if you recall, we used to be very much always reporting on percentage of staff who'd had a PDR within the last 12 months. And that didn't really tell us anything. It didn't tell us about the quality of that review. So the Conway conversation was introduced. Again, responsibility of every line manager to have regular one-to-one conversations with colleagues. There are some exceptions where there are group conversations on the nature of the work. And within iTrent, we have systems within there that provide prompts for both the member of staff and the line manager to look at not just performance, but also work-life balance, well-being, future training needs, or anything else that they would like to discuss. And that's the process that I was trying to explain to you in terms of the intelligence is what we're working to draw through in terms of what is the future skills need, what is that intelligence, because it places a responsibility on the line manager and the member of staff to discuss together their performance, their well-being, and any skills gaps that they may find in terms of their work. And yes, we do have statistics, we do have data on, you know, mandatory training, but actually the real strength is through those regular one-to-one conversations, and they are there is that availability to track that conversation on iTrent, not just for the line manager, the member of staff can log in there as well, and that's a record that's kept of every one-to-one between those individuals. So in terms of future need, future career progression, or if we need it, future challenge in terms of their attendance or their performance, then we have got a process of reviewing that through the iTrent record.
Thank you, Fran. Councillor Anne?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm really getting anywhere with the answer to the basic fundamental question about how we train our staff. I understand the piece about learning and development, and obviously, you know, doing reviews, but I just don't feel I've had the assurance that I was looking for in terms of basic staff training, but I'll leave that there. I mean, the recommendation that I would like to make, just to sort of move us on, Chair, is that that we note the report and the progress that's been made, but I also would actually ask Cabinet to review the allocation of resources to this team, because these are, you know, this strategy, this plan actually ought to be the delivery of the level of competence and sort of service that we rely on for success and resilience within the organisation. And I think some of the areas that have not made as much progress as the team obviously wanted because of resources, I think that's a fundamental issue and risk to the organisation. So I would actually ask Cabinet to review the allocation of resources to be able to deliver more on the strategy and the plan. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Anne. And when we finish the speakers, we'll look for a seconder for that recommendation. Next, Councillor Paul, briefly, and then Councillor Gromway, and we'll move to the votes. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak. And thanks for the report, Fran, and thank you for getting back to me in relation to some of my queries. So that was helpful.
I'll bring your mic into, that's it.
Can I just, I think we have to
take ownership of part of this. You know, I voted, for example, not to support the business case for the talent program. You know, so politically, we need to take responsibility for our part in this decision making. I would like the business case for the talent program to come back, because I think that is a very significant part of the infrastructure for any organization, whether it's a commercial body or a public body. I mean, I just think we had to take many difficult decisions, but when we take those difficult decisions, we have to own the consequences and take responsibility. And I think that's true because at the present time, though many of my residents are very supportive of Conway in lots of the work it does, and actually are quite vocal of their support where they have a good service and a good experience. Like every councillor, I'm very aware we have many residents alienated and quite angry. I've never known so many people so angry about a lot of things. I'm in listening to younger people, and when I say younger people, because I'm 70, when I listen to people between 18 and say about 40 locally, what shocks me is how many of them actually travel each day to England to earn a living. Even the ones that spend more time at home, i.e. the hybrid workers, I'm very conscious many of those travel very regularly in England. I could think of a member of my own family who travels very regularly to London because that's where the employer is. And that is a real challenge for young people in an area of, and when I say people are traveling into England, these are not people necessarily earning high salaries. These are people on low incomes. And
Have we got a question?
yeah,
Councillor Paul?
well,
I'm
my
really-
point, it's building on what's already been said, really. I think we do need to revisit how not just Conway, but in the economy generally, locally, we can maintain a means of younger adults earning a living locally. I think it's a massive challenge to this council, and we do need to think much more profoundly about how we support those young adults locally. And I don't get through this people strategy a feeling we're onto that.
We're doing our best. I'm a little disturbed that you class up to 40 as young. I'm no longer in that category, but we'll move over that bit. Yeah, we are looking at, and you know, our demography, I'm sure many members have seen, it looks like an apple core, doesn't it, in terms of you know, young people. It narrows in the middle when young people leave the county, then come back when they're older. We are looking at that. We regularly have colleagues that go into schools to promote the variety of careers across the authority. And we are working with Darragan Talent. No, I've said it wrong. I always get it wrong. Darragan, yeah, it's in my head now. Darragan Talent, which is an all Wales scheme. Very innovative scheme, looking at how we can draw Welsh talent back, so graduates, Welsh graduates back to Wales, because we know, don't we, that wherever you tend to go to university, you tend to settle. So for those young Welsh people, quite rightly, going to universities across the UK. Why shouldn't they? It's looking at how we can draw that talent back into the authority as well. We have been successful in some SPF funding, so we're going to be able to offer some paid work placements this summer, because we know that as well, trying to work with young people to make sure that their opportunity to do work experience with us is as accessible as possible, and that they understand the careers that are available here. So we are looking at things, but yes, it's a wider issue than just Conwy.
Could I just come back on one specific?
Very briefly.
Because I don't think it's just about bringing graduates back. I'm also concerned about people who are earning low incomes now, but travel because of that. And I was very conscious trying to persuade local young people to apply for the jobs. We've got about 60 jobs, or we've had about 60 jobs in the children's homes. And I was arguing with them quite strongly, yes, but this is a start from you. Once you get in, and again, it was this sort of almost alienation. It may be true of all councils. It's not just Conway. Oh, do I want to go and work for the council? And it is a problem, and it is something we have to address, because I said, yes, these jobs initially maybe are not very high paid, but they're a good salary. You can pay into a good pension and all of that. But the young people themselves were not, if you like, excited, or it didn't really fit in with their view of the world. And that is a problem which we have to address. And also, one of the things that certainly one person said to me, yeah, but have you ever tried applying for a job with Conway? And I can apply for 4 or 5 jobs in the time it will take me to apply for a Conway job. And I think we've got to take that feedback. These are the new generation, and they're not finding us an attractive place to go.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Reen, you wanted to make
very, very quickly. I think the points are really well made. In that, I think as a sector, I think we do not promote ourselves well as a sector as a good place to work. I think, funnily enough, the point was raised. The minister at a meeting of chief executives a couple of months ago made the point that we should be promoting local government as a career, because it gives opportunities. I think I had it from my own experience, having worked in private practice for 9 years. Within 2 weeks of starting local government, being in the High Court of Justice in London on a judicial review, you would never get that working for a local firm. And I don't think as a sector we've cracked that yet. We definitely, with really good work in terms of social care about attracting people in and achieving qualifications through our systems. But definitely there is something, and it's not all about money. I don't think, we have struggles in terms of, that's a bit of the elephant in the room around, even with our partners in the public sector, there's a conversation to be had there about pay, but it's only part of the conversation. There's a wider conversation about the opportunities working in this sector gives people, especially young people. And I'm glad to hear that around the talent scheme, because, it's something that we were quite passionate about, but accepting where we were. But it's certainly something that we will have to think hard about, because it's not just about the next 2-3 years. It's about 10, 15 years. Where will we get the talent coming through? And we've seen here around workforce planning. It's part of that equation, isn't it? So I think it's a really good point, and it's something certainly as a sector we need to be addressing with.
Absolutely. Thank you, Reen. And thank you, Councillor Paul, for making those of us becoming pensioners this week feel very, very old indeed. Okay, last word. Councillor Gromley, very briefly, online. Thank you.
Thank you. listened to the debate with interest. One of my concerns is, and there's been a lot of mention of services that ERF perform on our behalf, is particularly things like nappy collections and things of that nature. These are, by the very nature of the work, difficult sometimes to get the staff that want to do these types of work. But one thing that does concern me is the retention of staff and recruitment of staff, especially for specialities within the ERF department, when our pay structure, our pay levels fall well below the private sector. And that's part of the reason why we struggle to find qualified mechanics, HGV drivers, people who do specialised jobs, such as we've not been able to recruit gully suckers, drivers, because this is a very skilled job and does need quite a bit of health and safety, plus the fact most of these jobs in here are quite physical jobs that means you need to be fit as well. And the working environments out there and even in some of the depots are not the best. And since Jeff and I have been taking on the portfolio, we've been looking at their working environments to try and make the lot better. It's not easy in these current financial times that we're in, and ERF have had to face over £80 million cuts in the last 10 years. So inevitably things will get stretched and there'll be pressure on the workforce. So I think it's important to realise that if we want a job done well, we have to pay the going rate. And that is part of the problem with our pay structure, that we don't recognise when there are specialised skills that are needed, we need to pay the appropriate amount. So that is something that needs to be addressed in our pay structure. My granddaughter, 16, just gone 17, was getting £11.50 an hour just to work in Primark when some of our staff are not on much more than that in a full-time job. So we do need to look at our pay structure, and also getting the message over that a lot of people don't understand. We do offer a good pension, but to young people, that's not particularly important. They want money in their pockets today, plus the fact that we don't make it well aware from what the benefits in the long term of having a pension plan in place means.
Thank you, Councillor Gromway.
Thank you for cutting me off.
Pleasure. Always happy to oblige. Always happy to oblige. Okay, we've had a recommendation from Councillor Anne. Have we got a seconder, please, for her proposal to review the allocation of to accept the recommendation in the report and to review the allocation of resources to this team? Have we a seconder, please? Councillor David. Yes, you're seconding. Thank you very much, Dio. So would members like to show on this proposal, please? Councillor Neer, is your hand up? No. Okay. So 2 online. So 3 in the room. So that's 5, 4, and how many against? 6 altogether. So that recommendation has been lost, Councillor Anne. Thank you very much. We now go to the the recommendation 2.1 as per the report. Would members like to show the proposer? Yeah, proposer for that. Councillor Stephen, Councillor Hannah second. Would members like to show on that? Yep, and against? No. Abstentions? 1 in the room. Thank you very much. That's carried. Deal. Right, we now move on to our final report of the day. And look at that, we're back on time again. Marvellous. This is the Equal Pay Audit 2018-2023, pages 84 to 138. Councillor Chris Cater, the Cabinet Member for Audit Policy and Performance, is going to present the report, and I gather you have a presentation as well.
I'm going to start down here and then I'm going to move to the podium. Oh, that's all right. Is that okay? Yeah, so we review pay gap data annually as part of our inclusive Conway plan. And we know that we need to comply with our statutory duties, which we do. But I really want to remind you that we have our own ongoing commitment to being an inclusive employer and an inclusive service provider. And that in this local authority, we take social justice issues very seriously. So the equal pay audit in front of us today provides an analysis on pay broken down by gender, ethnicity, disability and age, with a focus on the 5 financial years between 2018-19 and 2022-2023. But this isn't just a dry statistical report to sign off. So the team and I wanted to approach the presentation in a slightly different way today by giving members a full PowerPoint, which Josh, who's sitting to the left of Fran, our HR and Equality Officer, has fortunately and skillfully put together for me. So I'm going to go up to the podium and we'll go through the slides, Chair, if that's all right.
Yeah. Excellent.
Okay. So I think we can go straight to slide 2, can't we? The Equality Act legally protects people from discrimination in work and wider society. We're all aware of that. It was 2010, and it's based on the 9 characteristics. And I think at this point, I really want to emphasize that this isn't about other people. It's not about those people over there. It's about us, because if you have a look at those protective characteristics, you will see that it applies to ourselves as well, because we all have at least 5 or more of these characteristics: age, sex, sexual orientation. We all have an ethnicity and heritage, and we all hold beliefs and non-beliefs in some form. So many of us have even more of these characteristics, combination, being married. Some of us have a disability, and during maternity or becoming a parent, that's listed there. And there is the transitioning through gender reassignment. I think what I know, Councillor Chris is sitting on the top table. Then he, pre-mate, he came in very eloquently about the disability side and putting that forward. Do you want to just come in just briefly on that? Because I think that's really relevant to what we're discussing here.
What people don't know, I actually do have a disability, but I've never wanted to share that. I've always felt that if I achieve something, I want to achieve it on my own merits rather than because I have been given some sort of benefit through being disabled. And I think a lot of people are very much the same. They want to achieve things because they feel they deserve, they've achieved it themselves rather than off the back of their own disabilities. And it's difficult for some people, I think, to my role as a councillor. I don't want people saying, "Oh, give him that role because he's disabled," but I want to be here because my residents have voted for me, and they voted for me because they think I've done a good job. And I think that anyone in employment wants to hope that they are in the job that they're in because they're doing a good job rather than because somebody feels sorry for them.
Yeah, I mean that's it, precisely it, isn't it? And we just go on to the organisational context, Sally. We have our legal duties, but we just want to ensure that we are inclusive, fair and welcoming. It's a responsibility for all the staff and elected members. And to do that, we have to expand our knowledge, understanding, and indeed our empathy to share a collective commitment to this. So we had the recent message from the Chief Exec, which I sent to all 55 members because I thought it was important to really emphasize that there is an importance of reporting inappropriate and discriminatory behaviour. That is crucial, and I think Fran mentioned that 60% of our staff are out there on the front line. They're not all sitting in offices, and social workers, they're on their own in their work environment. And I think it's really important that that any discriminatory behaviour is stamped on immediately and is recorded and reported. So the next slide, I think I've already covered that that fact that this report covers the analysis. If we go to defining equal pay and pay gaps, equal pay, just to be clear, is about paying people the same for work of equal value, while a pay gap relates to the difference in average pay between groups of people with different protected groups. So pay gaps reflect workforce profiles rather than unequal rewards for people doing the same job. And the elimination of pay gaps for disability, ethnicity and gender by 2050 is a national milestone for Wales, and that is part of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. I think the next slide shows that job evaluation has done its job in Conwy. Through the implementation of our job evaluation scheme, we are confident that we pay equally for work of equal value in Conwy. We do have the grading and pay structure. We also take an analytical approach to evaluation of all roles via this JE process. And that was recently audited by our internal audit service and given a high assurance status. So that's a feather in our cap. So we go on to the graphs, and there are two here. This one is the mean pay gaps, and you'll see there's a little bit of variation. For instance, disability and ethnicity, there are small numbers, so the statistics can fluctuate quite substantially year on year, but you'll see that the ethnicity pay gap has, if anything, gone up rather than gone down. And although this is 2023 data and the numbers are small, it is important that we have a look at these trends. We talked about, Councillor Chris just mentioned about responding to staff surveys and surveys, ticking the box if you've got a disability or regarding LGBTQ differences. Not everyone wants to do that. And I think in all our surveys, we need to respect that people prefer not to say in response to some of the questions. So the figures are not absolutely accurate, and we've relaunched the staff survey last year as part of the National Inclusion Week, and I think it has improved. I'm looking at Josh here. The responses to those questions are improving, so our data is becoming a little bit more reliable. There is this 5% point here, which if you break through it like we have with the ethnicity pay gap, that prompts further serious investigation, which is what we are doing with that category. I just want to give you an assurance that we act on the data in our equal pay audit and our employment monitoring report. And the next slide shows you some of the areas of focus. We know that the whole of Wales has the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan, which we're working on, and we, as a local authority, last year adopted Unison's Anti-Racist Charter. Was it last year or was it the year before? It was the year before. So that's resulted in a list of actions for us. So it's important to have inclusive recruitment and the opportunity for progression. It's important that we report and support procedures. We create and promote opportunities for learning. There's consultation and engagement. and we improve our knowledge of the workforce profile. Studies have shown that this really benefits an organization. It's important that we realize an inclusive culture can have a significant impact for both people and performance. I think that slide is self-explanatory. We want to attract a bigger talent pool that actually reflects wider society, and that hopefully will resolve recruitment issues and improve outcomes for resident staff and our visitors. The next slide is also interesting because it states that 80% of the world's top companies actively look at demographic diversity and inclusion to boost performance. Politically, this is being discussed a lot recently. There you have it. Companies with significantly more demographic diversity are 35% more likely to outperform competitors because of richer perspectives. Gen Z, that's an interesting term, a little bit controversial. So that's 97 to 2012. And Gen Alpha, which is 2013 to 2024, they are looking for organizations that make a difference and have an inclusive culture, as well as flexible working. So we want those people, don't we? Those are our future. And we just discussed the Apple Core age profile of the authority. It's an area that we have in Conway, and we want to change that, Chair, don't we? That is an aspiration. So fostering an inclusive environment is both a moral imperative and a strategic advantage. I don't think any of us can argue with that. And looking at equal pay and pay gaps is only one tool to get meaningful action on this. The two key messages I would like you to take away from this is that we need to focus on the ethnicity pay gap, and we need to focus on recruitment pathways for people with learning disabilities. Fran mentioned when presenting the previous report that we've been very fortunate to have the funding for the Impact project, which will start in September, and that will help with that focus. So can I thank at this stage Tracy, Naomi, and Josh, and of course Fran, because this is a huge piece of work, and I think it's been very informative, and it is important. Chair, so I'm going to go and sit back down with the team. Thank you very much. I hope you didn't mind us doing it in that way this time.
That's great, really informative. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Chris. Okay, members, any questions? Oh, right, we'll go Councillor Gareth, if he's a committee member, then Councillor Paul. Okay, Councillor Gareth.
Yeah, just at the end there, you said that we need to address the ethnicity pay gap. But I was just looking at some of the stats, and because, you know, stats aren't everything. I can't see where where there's a problem with the ethnicity pay gap at Conwy Council. You know, you could, if you just looked at the purely stats, you know, your white Welsh are actually paid less than average. Compared with, you know, if I pick one at random, white Irish are paid more than average than the white Welsh. But that's where the whole thing is skewed by really small numbers.
Not looking anywhere.
I won't suggest that Charlie's got anything to do with that. Yeah. But you know, sometimes the stats that we're dealing with such small numbers in some areas that the stats can be skewed.
Yeah, if you refer to paragraph 3.4 where Josh has highlighted, feel free to chip in, Josh, but highlighted the ethnicity pay gap. Yes, it does fluctuate, but the marker is 5%, and it has gone up to 8.84%. You're absolutely right. It's not just about the statistics. It's about looking at our workforce profile as a whole. And regardless of the pay gap, we know this is an area where we really need to do better. We've talked about recruitment, we've talked about performance, we've talked about talent, and we know, as Councillor Chris has just highlighted, that a diverse workforce creates better performance and better creativity. And this is an area, regardless of the statistics, where we are not an organisation that is representative, so we need to do better. And in terms of doing better, that's about looking at equality and equity of opportunity. So I would like to say, whilst I've got the mic on, to thank Councillor Chris for sharing his lived experience. But what we're looking at is the equity of opportunity, that regardless of your background, you are coming to an organisation where you feel you can bring your whole self to work, that you can be, be welcomed, be included, be acknowledged for whatever your background or your particular needs. So we want to look at that equity of opportunity, and we know, and we presented this in Reports to Democracy just last month, that actually if you have a disability or you are of ethnic minority heritage, you are less likely to be employed within Conway and have the same level of opportunity. So we really need to look at that, because that is about our future, that is about Gen Z, that is about Gen Alpha, and it's about the right thing to do. So thank you for raising it, but it is wider than the statistic, basically.
Thank you very much. Councillor Paul next.
Yeah, I think Fran will know the question I'm going to ask. It's about equal pay in schools, and equal pay in schools for the whole range of non-teaching staff in schools. Now, let me first say that when residents raise this issue, and residents do raise this issue with me, I always encourage them to join a trade union and to get a trade union to represent them on their concern, grievance, or whatever it is. But I am conscious, and I don't think it's just a Conway issue. I think there is unease in schools that because of the dramatic changes that are taking place in schools and the very significant numbers of non-teaching staff now in schools, I don't think, not just Conway, but councils overall have got up to task, in a sense, in understanding that new school culture. And I think there are people in schools, and of course, many of these people are on temporary contracts, part-time contracts, almost, I would say, 0 hours contracts, because they're coming in, they're in one day, they're not in another day. And I really think, I am not a member of this committee, but I would really like a report on, if you like, the contemporary story about all non-teaching staff in schools, because I think where we are in 2025 is dramatically different, even in the last 5 years, let alone the last 10 years. And I think this issue does need to be revisited. And I'm not putting this down just to Conway. I think it's an issue for all councils about how people are paid, and if they're not teachers working in schools.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. That's a really good point. I spend a lot of time with the additional needs staff in varying schools, and they do highly competent, vital jobs within our schools. So that's definitely something. Fran, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, just to assure that but with respect, I think was getting slightly off topic, and I wouldn't want us to draw us away from the areas of improvement we know we want to work on. This report is about protected characteristics, and I think what you're referring to is job roles. So that is different. What we're looking at here today is how do we make sure that there is equality of opportunity regardless of your protected characteristics. What I think you're referring to, Councillor Paul, with respect is about specific job roles and that's about our job evaluation scheme. And there is a process which both line managers and members of staff can go through if they feel their job description isn't up to date, isn't relevant. And we work very closely with the trade unions on that. They are part of the job evaluation process. So there is a difference there. Let's not confuse job roles with the report in front of us, which is about, are we making sure that we are a fair and inclusive employer, providing equity of opportunity regardless of your protected characteristics.
Thank you very much, Fran. Thank you for that. We're now going to, we've got Councillor David online, then we're going to the recommendations. Councillor David.
Yes. The point I was going to make, and obviously I don't want to be out of kilter what the debate's about, is the evaluation of jobs in frontline services. Councillor Gromway was saying that he felt that that people could could go into the private sector and they could get a higher rate of pay. So I was looking at it from that perspective, really, that we need to sort of maybe reevaluate some of the frontline jobs to make sure that we are paying so that we can recruit and retain staff. But if that's out of kilter with the report, but it was a point that does need to be made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor David. That's great. And I'd like to speak to you outside of the meeting, Fran, about a report in future for the equity of treatment of staff carers. To talk to you about that, because I think a report needs to come on that, because there's complete variance in how our staff who are carers have time out for they're cared for, whether it's hospital appointments, emergencies, summer holiday. I can see Josh not. Yes, thank you. You can see some have take holidays, some with pay, some without pay. So I really think that's an area we need to look at. So thank you. We'll discuss that outside of here. Okay, so that's all our questions. We've got recommendations here. Would someone like to propose? Councillor Hannah, and second. Councillor Nia. Lovely deal. Okay, so a proposer and a seconder. Would members like to show? Oh, that's unanimous. I don't need to do the rest, but no one against then. Thank you. That is carried. Thank you very much, members. Deal. And look at that, finished only 5 minutes over the allotted time for the meeting. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone.